What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we're speaking the language of bromance. Shawn, it's been a minute since we've actually recorded. I know, but that actually felt a little weird. That felt a little weird to me.
I think it's been a week and a half since we've recorded. We've set it up to record every night this week, but it got pushed because I was sleepy. And then when we were going to record, I was like, Richard, I have the greatest tale ever told, but I need one more night to finish this docu-series.
Yeah,
so I can get
and I got all excited, and I was like, oh my God, what's he talking about? I wanted to know so bad. And then he told me, and my face instantly went from 100 to 0. And I'm going to say, and so Shawn, what show, what's the name of the show you're going to explain to me?
Well, Richard, so
just give me the title, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I want to preface, I don't think either one of us are super hype people. And I would say that of the hype people, I'm probably less than you are, maybe. I don't know.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So it's like, oh my God, you have to do this or see this or be this thing.
I am 100% much more that person than you.
And whenever I get any of this stuff, like if people are like, you have to see this thing, I really kind of like cower in a corner. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to watch it just to make a point.
And yes, I do that as well. Especially if I get this, there's this overwhelming like, oh my God, you need to see this thing, you have to see it, and I'm like, no, fuck
like
you guys.
Friends, I don't watch Friends to this day because of that. And
I watched Friends when it was actually like on television.
Yeah, Seinfeld, people are like, you have to, or The Office, people are like, oh my God, you have to watch. And I'm like,
still
no.
To this day, have not seen The Office.
I've seen a couple episodes, and it's like, funny, whatever. But again, not a sitcom guy. I am, though, a docu-series guy. And this show, Richard, was #1 on Netflix. Everybody's been talking about it. I'm sure every podcast you listen to has given you their take on it.
Yep.
And so Tiffany and I, we don't watch a lot of TV together, and I was like, let's just check this out.
Mm-hmm.
And we hit play on it and watched it, because the way this has been sold, Richard, is like you watch the first episode, and you're like, well, that's weird. You watch the second episode, you're like, huh, that's weird. I got to watch another. And before you know it, it's 6 a.m. You have to go to work in an hour, and you've already binged this whole series. Oof. We didn't quite do that, Richard, but it is the infamous Tiger King documentary on Netflix.
Okay. So there's a lot of times where, like, I tell you about a show or a movie, or you tell me about a show and a movie, and we say to each other, like, well, why don't you watch it? And that way we can get this perspective where, like, you explain the show to me, or I explain the show to you, and then I can get that way the audience can kind of get a sense of, like, somebody explaining it to somebody that's never seen it.
Yeah, it's less of a review at that point.
Exactly.
How did this happen? Then you can kind of explain it, and you kind of fill in the holes as the person who hasn't seen that thing or understands what it means to watch it.
Exactly. Now, when we do that, the one person who has seen it is very excited about it, and is trying to explain it to the other person. The other person, the person who hasn't seen it, is someone who keeps an open mind and says, I haven't seen it, but I'll listen to what you have to say about it, and then that might make a determination as to whether or not I will watch it. Shawn, with this one, it's going to go a little different, and I'll explain why. I have seen people, like, you can't escape the endless supply of pictures and memes and bullshit all over social media about the show. And based on that, from what I've seen, and nobody's actually even explained this show to me, like who's in it or what it's about. The only reference I have to the only thing I know about this entire show is it's based on a guy whose name is Joe Exotic. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's what he's changed his name to.
Okay. and that at one point he ran for president.
He did run for president in 2016.
Okay. There was a John Oliver bit. There was a bit on that Last Week Tonight with John Oliver years ago where he mentioned it. And I thought, like it was kind of funny. And that's whatever. Okay. So based on the things that I've seen on Facebook and the loose, rudimentary things that I have picked up on just that one person, this is going to go a little different because usually you explain it, I keep an open mind, and then I determine whether or not I want to see it. Shawn, in this instance, you have permission to treat the witness as hostile. And I say that because I not only actively am avoiding watching the show because it's, like you were saying earlier, everybody's seen it, so, or everybody wants you to see it, so you're not going to watch it out of principle. In this instance, not only do I not want to see it because of that, but I also don't want to see it because it looks like it sounds like a god-awful train wreck of a show. And I do not. And I like watching a show that is centered around the absolute fuck all misery and just like I said, it sounds like a train wreck of a show because it sounds like a train wreck of a fucking family. And actively voyeuring while sitting upon my high and mighty moral high ground throne, looking down at these fucking commoners does not sound appealing to me at fucking all. This is, I guess the only thing I can compare it to in my head is what was that show that was on TLC with the really like it was like this white trash family.
You're talking about Honey Boo Boo or whatever.
That's it. Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
So that
I didn't watch any of that either.
Oh, I didn't either.
For that reason, because I'm like, why do I want to watch that? Like, I don't need to watch these people in order to feel better about myself. And I feel like that's what the draw is.
No, so I try to think about this because Honey Boo Boo and a lot of reality shows like that feel like a train wreck, right?
Yes.
Like you're watching this and it's just all of this stuff like, well, that was a stupid decision. That was a stupid decision. And I can't figure out what the equivalent to like specifically Tiger King would be. I don't think train wreck's the right way to explain it because as you're watching this show and as I'm going to try and give this to you, it's more of like, oh, okay, well, it's this thing. And then the next episode starts and like, wait, okay, so it's this thing. And then the third episode happens. You're like, wait, it's a true crime drama now? And it's not so much train wreck as it's like, how is this actually even possible? Like, how is this real? Like, it feels too much like somebody sat down, got Stephen King high on cocaine, and wrote this story out where it's like, oh, well, guess what? You know what the next thing is? She fed her husband to a tiger.
It sounds like I would say not cocaine. I would replace that with meth.
Yeah,
but
good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll try to explain it to you. And you tell me if it still feels train wrecky to you, but because, I was sitting up late last night trying to figure out how to explain this to you. And I know train wreck was the first thing that's come to a lot of people's minds whenever they talk about it, but Honey Boo Boo, reality TV stuff like that, like Kardashians, that feels like a train wreck.
Haven't seen any of that either. For the exact same reason. I don't need to watch other people to feel better about myself. And like people always say, like, well, you watch Shameless, and Shameless is kind of the same thing. No, I would disagree because when you're talking about a show like Shameless, while some of the characters do things that are morally reprehensible, I would say that they do have there's a heart to that show, and there is a certain moral code and a certain set of moral standards that they themselves abide by. Like there is heart to that show.
Yeah, and I think when we talk train wreck, it's almost like I think this is maybe where it would lead me. a train wreck is like you watch it and you're like, well, at least I'm not like that fucker.
Mhm,
With this,
mhm.
it's not so much that. It's more of like you're seeing the story unfold. More so just where you don't feel better about yourself or worse about yourself. You try to figure out like how this is even possible in the world. Like it just doesn't
Mhm.
make sense how this is a thing. And I'm kind of curious. I didn't look at the specific place where this is, but so let's start from the beginning, Richard. So
I'm okay. So just so you know, you have a task ahead of you, because not only do you need to explain the show to me and try to sell me on it, but you're doing it to an active hostile audience. Like this, none of this, from what I've seen and heard so far, none of it sounds appealing to me, and I am probably going to scrutinize everything you say, no pressure, and go.
well, I don't think I can sell you on wanting to watch it.
Okay.
Because the only way that you would be sold on wanting to watch this is after, like I told you, this may be a 2-part episode. I don't know yet. But at the end of us talking about this, you're probably going to look at me and be like, I'm pretty sure he made up 90% of that. That's all bullshit.
Uh-huh.
And you're going to go watch it just to prove the fact that I was wrong.
Okay.
And you're going to get through it and be like, holy shit, that was all real.
Now, wait a minute. Spite is a big motivator for me.
That's true.
Oh.
Because so I saw a few memes, I saw a few things that were kind of poked around at, and I'm like, there's no fucking way.
Yeah.
Richard, I guarantee you every single meme, every single post, everything you've seen about this show is true. Like nobody's being like fake about it, which it makes it kind of worse maybe, but so I want to start out, and there's actually a podcast out by Wondery too, where they're kind of going a little bit deeper. I'm not sure which came first.
This takes place in Florida, doesn't it?
There's some that takes place in Florida.
I knew
Joe
it.
Exotic, though, takes place in Oklahoma.
Oh.
And I don't know. I wanted to go back to our episodes where we traveled to Fort Worth, Texas, and drove through Oklahoma, because I'm not 100% sure that we didn't see one of Joe Exotic's signs for the zoo. And I think we could have potentially talked about it.
The only thing I remember is the toy museum when we were driving. There were big billboards for an action figure museum, and I was like, "Oh, that'd be sweet. You could hit the action figure museum."
Well, there's signs, I guess, all over Oklahoma for his zoo, which is the oh shit, I should have the name ready. It's the GW Sanctuary, essentially, the GW Zoo, and it's one of those private zoos, which we've talked about before. I've never been to one.
I've never been to one either, and I'm not a big fan of the idea, because that sounds like it's basically like, hey, we're a private zoo, so if we can beat the shit out of the animals if we want.
Yeah, and it's called Greater Wynwood Exotic Animal Park, which is in Oklahoma.
Because they beat the animals with woodwinds.
I think so. Okay, this dude's weird. So, years ago when he first started up, he was essentially rescuing these animals. Right? He wasn't breeding. And he was on camera telling people like, hey, we need to stop breeding these animals. They belong in Africa. They don't belong here.
Okay.
Which is good.
Meanwhile, he owned like 15?
Early on, he didn't have that many. I think they had like some old, grainy, like local news station footage.
So he's professing to people, hey, these animals need to be back where they belong. Not these ones, though. They're mine.
Well, the ones that he had would have been like ones that people had bought as cubs that didn't know the wild.
Okay.
And I'm still a little fuzzy with that, which, again, this plays into the whole other party that's involved in this story. Carol Baskin. We'll talk a little bit about her, too.
God. All right.
So when he started out, and a lot of people in the documentary at the end said that they felt like when he started out, he did have good intentions for the animals.
Okay.
It was the fact like, hey, this person has this mountain lion cub that's actually adult now. They don't want it, or they're gonna kill it or whatever. So he brought it into the sanctuary.
That's crazy. Why would you not want to like if somebody handed you like a mountain lion cub when you were like little, and then like, okay, this is yours to raise, and then it grows up. And you grow up, and now you have a fucking mountain lion that's like been with you for years, and it's like your best friend. Like that sounds kind of awesome.
Richard, it's still a mountain lion. You know what mountain lions do? Eat your face.
Yeah, but it's your mountain lion.
Yeah, we've talked about this about our own pets. Like my dog, like every now and then I look at him and I'm like, if you really wanted to, dog, you could tear me up. And
Yeah,
there's
like
not
even
a thing
a
I can do
cat,
about it.
even a cat. Like I feel like if it like, you know, I mean, like yes, a cat's smaller, but a cat, like I feel like if cats get pissed off enough,
Yeah, well, I mean, and think about like a mountain lion. If your pet mountain lion's like, you know what, fuck you, man, and it goes at you, what are you gonna do besides be its dinner?
yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right, but I mean, still, like, I guess I'm just saying, like, if I had one, I don't know if I'd want to get rid of it. Like, there's no, like, if I had one, I wouldn't want to get rid of it, but I would never get one.
Yeah. Oh no. And so what you learn too in this, Richard,
Like, I would never. I guess I'm just saying that I would never actively pursue getting a mountain lion or a tiger or whatever. But if I was a little kid and I was handed a mountain lion and then I grew up and this mountain lion was with me the whole time, I would never want to get rid of the mountain lion.
Yeah. Well, and what you learn in this documentary, Richard, is that these people who like exotic animals are kind of weird and addicted to it.
I could see that. That
and then
makes
you
sense.
think, like, you're like, oh my God, I couldn't even afford a mountain lion or a tiger. Like, how much would that be?
How much would it be?
$2,000.
So for $2,000, I can own a tiger?
Not legally, because I think that's illegal to technically still to sell it. But at these places, yeah, you could go to Joe Exotic and get a tiger cub. And one spot he was saying it was like 5,000, and that might have been for like a liger tiger mix. But yeah, they're talking like tigers.
Oh my God, I could have
like
a liger? They're known for their skills in magic, Shawn.
It's true. And did you know, I guess apparently ligers, they will mate with lions to get like a Lili tiger. That's supposed to be like something else phenomenal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Fucking crazy stuff that goes on in these places.
And they're fucking huge. Like a liger, they're enormous.
Yeah. Well, and there's a stat, Richard, I will share at the very end of this that was very much put in perspective the weirdness that is exotic animal owners.
Okay.
So keep that tidbit. I won't forget.
I had a friend that owned well, I don't know if he still does, but he used to own alligators.
Joe Exotic, as he got later into his ownership, he had alligators, crocodiles, chimpanzees, snakes, lions,
like
tigers,
this
bears.
this guy I knew he you know, like he had like a shop and he mainly dealt in snakes, but at his house, which he ran the shop out of, at his house in the basement, he had alligators. There were alligators in the basement, Shawn. Can you imagine?
No,
like, what if you didn't know and you fucking try to rob that house? You come in through the basement and there's fucking alligators?
It's like their cat's hissing and you flip on the light and there's 12 like 8-foot alligators.
Jesus. Or just even like 2. Let's say there's just 2. Like all of a sudden you flip the lights on and there's fucking alligators in the basement.
Yeah. No thanks. So Richard, when he started out, he was I can't remember, Joe Scherlerbevogel. SCHREIBVOGEL.
Oh, he needs to change that name quick.
Oh, that's why he changed his name, Richard.
Thank goodness, because I don't want to hear you butcher that for the next 45 minutes.
He's going through, this is very early in his life. So I think he kind of figured out like there was some money in, bringing people in, looking at their animals. And again, from everything I heard, I think he had the best intentions. He had these animals. He wanted to take them to schools and stuff like that. And the reason he wanted to take them to schools is to be like, hey, listen, if I'm talking to these kids about, hey, don't do drugs, they see just an old dude talking about not doing drugs. But if they're up there,
that fucking bullshit dare officer uniform.
Yeah. But if I go up there and they're sitting around, they're playing with these cats, seeing all these animals, then I can drop a little knowledge on them. Like it actually kind of works out. So he met up with this kid who was like 13 or 14, who was a magician.
Okay.
And so he decided, like, listen, you teach me how to do magic.
Oh my God. So it's like
animals.
Siegfried and Roy?
Kind of close. And so he's like, on a special, he says,
you do the magic and I handle the tigers. It worked for Siegfried and Roy. What could go wrong?
But as he's going through this thing,
nom.
He's on a talk show and they're like talking about how he's coming to some mall or some school. And he's like, oh, my name was Joe Scherlerbevogel, but now I go by Joe Exotic because nobody could spell my name right.
Yeah. It's a good move.
He went on these tours with these animals, And that's what he said in this documentary. He's like, I go into these schools and I'm like, hey, kids, we need to protect the environment, or we need to, you don't do drugs. And he's like, they don't really pay attention. But if I come in with these animals, I get their attention.
Yeah.
And so that was his goal with that.
Okay.
So fast forward a few years.
So what did the guy with the magic do? Did he was like, hey, while I'm, pulling a quarter from behind you, or I want to teach you the importance of money,
I guess.
Or, hey, pick a card. And while we're doing this, let me talk to you about the dangers of gambling.
So Joe Exotic, he is a guy who wanted to be a showman. So as they're like in the early stages of this magical road trip, apparently he wanted this big like explosion type thing. And this I listened to on the podcast. So he wanted this big explosion and then there'd be a tiger there.
Okay.
But apparently the tiger got scared because it's like a big explosion. And it's like, what the fuck is that? And so like, okay, well,
you just said the word scared tiger and I'm instantly like, oh God, like this is going to end with a 4-year-old being eaten, isn't it?
Well, they tested it first and like, okay, well, this isn't working right. So Joe Exotic, like, it's kind of like the whole Prince thing. Like, it just doesn't grasp reality.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, well, let's just get a sheep. And the guy who was like the handler is like, yeah, but it's a sheep. He's like, yeah, we'll paint it orange. We'll put black stripes on it. Nobody will know the difference.
What?
And so they used a sheep in this thing. But when the explosion happened, they tested, the sheep freaked out too because it's a loud noise. It's animal. It doesn't know what's going on. So the guy who was the handler was waiting in this like big rig type thing.
Okay.
And so when the explosion happened, he's standing there with this orange painted sheep and everybody's like, oh my God, yes, fireworks. Woo, that's cool. Like,
explosions?
Is that a painted sheep? So Joe Exotic,
and then he's like, yes, and now we're gonna introduce the tiger. Whatever could go wrong?
Let's see. So yeah, that was the kind of funny thing about, and again, it goes back to, I think that's really setting the table for what Joe Exotic is. It's a guy who isn't really
some idiot that doesn't understand that you can paint a sheep, but it doesn't make it a tiger.
Yeah, but you say idiot, but the dude owned like 60 some acres, and I don't know how much money he was bringing in, but it wasn't chunk change.
Where did the money come from?
Well, so he had this zoo where he had a bunch of different animals, like I mentioned,
okay,
and people would come in and they would pay to see the animals. And I think this is kind of where he discovered and maybe got addicted to not caring as much for the animals. So you probably remember, because it came around in our hometown, and they showed pinpoints of different malls that he had been to. And they kind of came up our way for sure, because he's from Oklahoma. So Oklahoma, Alabama, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, northern states, Ohio, and stuff like that. He definitely took those trails. And so what he would do is he would go to those places with cubs. And it's one of those situations where like, hey, for $20, you can hold, pet, and get your picture with a tiger cub. And I mean,
that sounds like a fucking horrible idea. Shawn, okay, wait. If you're a parent, well, you are a parent, would you pay $20 to sit your child down with a fucking tiger cub? And they're like, okay, now squeeze it tight and we'll take a picture.
No, I wouldn't. I know of people that have, and they turned out okay. But
Fuck
I'm the same.
That.
I'm the kind of person that's like, that's a wild animal.
I'm traveling down the road, not flirting with disaster.
But I mean,
that's what he's playing as he's fucking driving from town to town.
You
just
remember
Molly Hatchet.
You remember when it came to our local mall? I mean, it was busy.
I do not remember.
I do, and lots of people went there for it.
Probably because my parents were like, "Fuck this."
Well, this would have been.
You're not gonna get eaten by a tiger.
This would have been when we worked at the sports bar. I remember it coming in there. It may not have been him specifically, but I do remember it being there because I remember people from work during break or when they took off going down and doing that. And I've always been the kind of person that when that came in, I'm like, there's no way that's like okay.
Yeah.
It just it instantly feels weird because like, well, I mean, it's a tiger cub, and it's not a big.
Nope.
But this guy does it all over. Tiger cubs get bigger.
Yeah.
Why does he always have tiger cubs?
Maybe Pookie Bear could go see the tiger cub. I hope the tiger eats it, Laura.
And I'm not gonna lie, I love tigers. Are probably my favorite animal.
Yeah.
And whenever we go to like regular zoos, I always like to see the tigers. And the last zoo we went to in Nebraska, it's a really nice zoo, but the big cat enclosure looks like a prison. And I know this was about 2 or 3 years ago, and they were doing some work to make it more natural for them. But even then, you're like, oh man, I feel bad for that one tiger. It's kind of stuck in like a cell, like it's not happy.
Yeah. The last time I went to a zoo, I went to the zoo in St. Louis, and I remember like in the cat enclosures. Wasn't really the tiger one. It was just like kind of it was it had like an enclosure, had trees and grass and water and everything else, but it was basically just like high, like 20, 25-foot cement walls.
Yeah.
And then everybody stood around, looked down. The one thing I do remember was the one for panthers. The panther one had a giant net over the top, and I'm like, why do they not have one for the tigers, but they have one for the panthers?
It's because it's a fat tiger.
Maybe. Tiger's like, oh, I'm going to get you. Oh, fuck. Oh, God.
But you feel bad for where they're at on here. And so, again, he's going around.
He's showing people the tiger cubs, and you're asking the question, what happens when the tiger cubs are no longer cubs?
Yes, and the third person in this story, who goes by the name of, I wrote it down.
Oh God. I feel like every time you introduce somebody new, I'm picturing just like absolute like train wreck of a human being.
They're interesting. It's Kevin Bakahavan Antle. And we'll get into him. And Richard, I'm at this point confident this will be 2 episodes because there's no way I can give you all this information in one. But there's thoughts about like there's lots of questions that's asked with that guy. It's like things swirling around. It's like, well, when I get a cub that is no longer in cub phase and I'm not going to make money off it anymore.
Yeah.
That cub finds its way into a big mass grave, allegedly.
Wait a minute, he's fucking shooting the tigers in the face?
Not Joe Exotic. There was nothing that said that about Joe Exotic.
No, but he's handing the fucking tigers to somebody that shoots them in the face.
No, the guy I talked about is a completely different private zoo owner.
So what happens when the tigers get too big? He gives them to this other person, right?
Well, no. Joe Exotic, he had I think like over 200 big cats.
Holy
when all was said and done.
Shit.
Yeah, he had a bunch of cats.
How the fuck do you keep track of 200 fucking?
It was 60 plus. I think it was like 20 some acres of land that he
I
had
have
all
a friend
these
of
things running
mine.
on.
I have a friend of mine that leaves like he's single and he has guns like laying around his house. Just like laying around his house. And it begs me the question, I'm like, why would you just keep like, because I don't know if they're loaded. I don't know if they're loaded or not. But like, to me, this is a guy that is keeping 200 loaded automatic rifles just like laying around.
If I had to compare, those would probably be more like landmines behind a fence. Because, I mean...
That doesn't make me feel better.
I mean, the guns, I mean, yeah, if you're... I guess it all comes back to how responsible you are.
Again, and right now, a man that has decided to name himself Joe Exotic does not strike me as the peak of responsibility.
Yeah, I'm not going to defend his 200 tigers.
How do you keep track of... Nope.
Well, so Richard, let's jump into the great employees he has at his... Okay. Greater Wynwood Exotic Animal Park, the GW.
How many people, including himself, are taking care of 200 dangerous animals?
I at least saw they had like probably 5 to 6 people that they talked to in this documentary.
So let's say 6.
But Richard, so these people, they would have a place to live at the zoo, animal park. I don't know if he considered a zoo.
You can sleep in our unused paddock. So then
No, it was a trailer. He provided them a trailer. He provided them.
Was the trailer in the enclosure? And like that way you're one with the animals.
I don't think they were actually in the enclosure. It was on the campus for sure. He provided them food. He provided them money, and he liked to find people who were either ex-convicts or were coming out of rehab programs, or basically like they just found themselves there off the train
Just
or
fucking
the
like drifters
bus.
off the road. Be like, hey, you want to? What's your name, Steve? What are your qualifications? Possession. Well, that's what you'll be doing. You'll be possessing animals.
Well, and this
Same
gets
thing,
into,
right?
This gets into
I
the
guess.
weirdness of these kind of groups because it's almost like a cult. Because Richard, I told you he gave them housing, right?
Yeah,
They were super shitty trailers.
I bet they were.
Multiple people living in them. The air probably didn't work. I said that he
they're
paid
in the middle
them.
of fucking Oklahoma. Can you imagine?
Oh man,
You're in a zoo. You're sleeping in a trailer. Like, how many wrong choices did you need to make in life in order to find yourself sleeping in a trailer in a zoo in Oklahoma?
well, and these trailers were like infested. Apparently there was
Oh.
lots of diseases and stuff that were going around with the people.
Ugh.
And guess what, Richard? I told you that they were getting paid. If you did this, you're getting food, you're getting housing. How
Yeah.
much a week? And these guys would work like 12 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. How much would you want to get paid to do this job if you're getting housing and food?
If I'm getting housing and food, I would say like at least, let's see, a livable wage would be 15 an hour. This is in what year? When is all this taking place?
Fairly recently. So,
So
the
early
the
2000s?
No. This is the documentary stuff that's being filmed, which is what's crazy about this documentary is it's like happening real time.
Okay.
Would have been from like 2014 to 2019.
Oh, okay.
It's all very recent.
I would say on like with the food and housing and everything, I would say you'd still be at least, 30, 40 a year.
So would you do it for $150 a week?
No.
That's
That's
what he
not
was
even
paying 'em.
minimum wage, Shawn.
But Richard, you have housing, which I told you was extremely great.
Oh.
The food that you're provided, Richard. So these animals, it costs a lot of money to feed them. I think it's like $5,000 a year per animal, or $3,000 a year per animal. It comes out to about like $8-10
What
bucks
do
a day.
like you always see it in cartoons that like the animals get fed like a big thing of raw meat, or like they'll throw like a T-bone steak at them or whatever. Like what do tigers actually what do they actually feed the tigers?
Joe Exotic had it down to a science. So he worked with the local police department, stuff like that. So anytime a deer or some kind of like big animal was hit on the road, they would get it and they would feed that to the tigers or the
So
big
they're
cats.
eating dead, rotting deer.
He would get cows from local butchers. Same
Okay.
kind of thing if they died in the fields.
Okay.
I think he said just by cows, he needed like 15 to 20 a day, I think, to feed all the
Jesus
tigers.
fuck all Christ.
The best thing, Richard, I told you, you're working here. You got housing. You've got free.
Oh my God. They're not feeding the people the dead cows, are they?
Oh no, Richard, it's better quality than that.
Thank
I
God.
did mention this, but I'll tell you what it was. You get free medical. That's a plus.
Well, yeah, I would imagine you get free medical if tiger bites your fucking head off.
Oh, you just wait what your free medical is, Richard.
Oh.
You get free food, and that food, Richard. So Joe Exotic had a great deal with the local Walmarts and local grocery stores.
Okay.
At these grocery stores and Walmart, when food gets close to expiration dates, they have to throw it out, right?
Uh-huh.
So Joe Exotic had it where all that food would get delivered to the local GW Exotic Animal Park, and they would take that food and give it to the animals. But Richard, as one of the great employees at this park, you could help sift through all that food and you would get first pickings of this food. This potentially right up to expiration, probably been sitting in a trailer way too long.
Yeah.
Food.
Oh, okay. So I'm working in a zoo, feeding and caring for something that has the potential to kill me in under 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, I am sleeping in what I assume to be a bedbug infested mattress in a trailer.
With probably multiple people.
I am being fed close to prison standards, if not worse than prison standards. And I am being paid, 150, be 1,500, 1,500. And I am being paid less than $10,000 a year.
Yeah, you're getting paid $7,800 a year. And you're getting free food. Let me tell you about the free medical, Richard. So
yes,
there was a lot of different diseases and stuff like that were getting spread around with the staff.
See, at this point, I feel like he's preying on the employees. And the reason I say that is because you said he'd like to hire a lot of ex-cons and stuff like that. So these are people that, probably like are having a hard time finding a job somewhere else. And so he's like, he's preying on their non-ability to secure decent work.
Yeah, and so let me jump to the free medical, and I'll kind of touch on that because that's the other really interesting thing of this documentary is like you're talking about. Like you felt like he's preying, and I don't know if in Joe Exotic's mind if he's actually preying on these people, but the free medical, Richard. So being on this campus, he at this point when this documentary is going, he has a lot of power in the sense that the local police and stuff like that don't even really want to come on his park.
No, why the fuck would they?
Yeah, it's if
I'm Officer Bar Brady and I'm driving around and like, why the fuck would I want to go there? Be like, oh, there's a domestic disturbance going on at the fucking Joe Exotic farm. I'd be like, fuck that. I'm going to show up and these two people are going to be fighting and all of a sudden a tiger's going to leap out and fucking claw me in the chest.
Yeah, or they're going to shoot me and feed me to the tiger or the gators.
I want no part of this.
So I feel like this is a tale of a guy who slowly just starts getting more and more power and becomes like, oh my God, I am like God. I'm God of Oklahoma.
Jesus, fuck all Christ.
So the people, of course, they didn't have money. So if you get sick or something, it's like, well, I can't go to the doctor. I can't pay for it because I legit get $150 a week. Yeah, so he would
I can afford about like 1/10 of a ER visit.
Yeah, and I don't even know what they did with their money when they worked there. That's but so he would prescribe these people on his campus just animal medicine.
How would he prescribe it?
It was on his property, so you'd be like, oh my God, I've got this weird rash. He'd be like, here, take this. Oh my God, like I got this cut. Here, take this.
Oh my God.
And
Shawn, so far, like I feel like at first you were trying to sell me as that this man is some sort of redeemable character. Like, I feel like he was going through it with the best of intentions.
I think no. So what I was trying to say there is when he started his park, like I think it was like he liked animals and he got a hold of a couple and he's like, well, maybe I can do something good here. And then he started discovering, like, well, wait a minute, and
this is hard.
Well, no, not really that. Just it's more of, and I don't think it was with malintentions. Like, I feel like I honestly feel like there's something off about this guy, and it's like, well, I'm going to take care of these animals, and you start getting people coming in and donating money, and then you start creating like this almost persona that gets this kind of traction, and people are giving you more money. And then it almost becomes like not really a victim of your own success, but to an extent you start building your own hype and you start, you're like, oh, well, I got to breed these cats because, now that I can have people come and they'll hold these cats and they'll give us money. I can use that money for all the other cats. But now, because I had to breed 15 cats this year.
So it's like hoarders, but with cats.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Because all the people they talk about in here, there's the Carol Baskin, there's the guy who they call Kevin Antle.
Okay.
Doc.
I'm waiting
Doc
for these
too.
people to have like weird fucked up nicknames like, oh, it's Slim Willie and fucking GR Pickens and
not too bad because it's Joe Exotic's pretty
the
weird.
Soggy Bottom Gang and
Carol Baskin's pretty unique. Doc is, they call him Doc because he's a doctor of
see, there we go.
What was it? Shit, what'd they call it? Because it was pretty fucking hilarious.
He stole drugs off the back of a truck. That makes him a doctor. You know what made him
like
a doctor, Shawn? When they walked into when they were stealing the drugs from the truck, he knew where the good ones were. That's why they called him Doc.
No, it was like a doctor of like psychic science or something like that. Like something that was complete
fucking tastic.
So, like I said, we're not getting to all this in one episode, Rich. So I'm gonna dribble this in for you. So Joe Exotic's the guy we focused on in this episode.
All
Carol
right.
Baskin is his arch nemesis.
Wait a minute. Who says she's the arch nemesis? Tell me that he was like, that bitch is my arch nemesis. You know why? Because people don't have those, Shawn. Normal people do not have an arch nemesis.
Normal people do not. But Carol Baskin, she is the one that runs the Big Cat Sanctuary in Tampa, Florida. There's a whole fucking thing on her, Richard. We'll save that for next episode. But to kind of like give you the like tie-in of like, wait, so I know Joe did like this murder for hire. This was the woman.
Wait, what?
You didn't know about the murder for hire?
No.
Oh, Richard. Boy,
Shawn, I'm saying I don't know anything. I know absolutely nothing. All I know is there's a guy that owned that owned tigers, and at one point, for some reason, he ran for president.
Put some coffee on, Richard. It's going to be a long night.
God damn it.
No, so the Joe Exotic, there was a murder for hire. That's why he's in jail right now. And Carol Baskin was his arch nemesis. He had
his arch nemesis.
Fuck, Richard. So this guy, Joe Exotic, had his own TV show, like internet TV show.
Oh, of course he did. I'm imagining like a fucking like a public access looking kind of format.
Oh, dude, it was all right. So oh man, I don't really know the best way to get this in within the next like 20 minutes. But all right, so Carol Baskin, she runs the Big Cat Sanctuary in Tampa. Arch nemesis of Joe Exotic.
Okay.
He has been convicted of hiring somebody to kill her. The other big name in this was the guy named Doc, Kevin.
Did he hire a tiger?
Dude, who he hired and how they got him is... There's another person that we'll add into this story, Richard.
Oh, my God.
Is like, you think of like a 50-year-old dude that's wearing, what's all like the skater boy stuff?
Like the Janko jeans and stuff like that?
Yeah, his name's like something Low. I'll get his full name.
Oh, of course. I bet his name's like fucking like Biggie Low or something or some fucking nonsense. Shawn, I feel like all this is just basically like, I feel like this show would be easier if someone just walked onto a stage and like, and now I'm going to list for you the worst people that you should never associate with. I will say their full names.
Yes.
And these are people that you should never come in contact with ever.
Well, and the thing that just happened right now with us, Richard, I'm like, oh, and there was this murder for hire. You're like, wait, what? I'm like, oh yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's almost like if you got blackout drunk and you come to and somebody's like, oh my God, do you remember doing this? Like, no, I don't remember jumping off that table. Oh yeah, it was right after you did this thing with, on this pool cube. It's like, I stuck it where? Like, oh yeah, then you pulled your dick out. Like, wait a minute.
Like, why didn't you lead off with pulling my dick out? Because right now, that's the tamest part of this story.
So Carol Baskin was a Big Cat Sanctuary who Joe hired somebody to murder, and that's why he ended up in jail.
Okay, so just so I'm following along. There's a guy that started a zoo. He basically has Holocaust adjacent conditions for.
Oh yeah.
And then there's somebody else that also owns a place for big cats in
Carol
Florida,
Baskin.
and he's like, fuck that bitch.
So just to,
was his plan to like kill her and like take her cats, like some weird fucking Highlander kind of thing?
No.
Like, there can be only one, and like hires a guy to fucking chop her head off, and then he inherits all her cats.
So Richard, Carol Baskin, this may be a 3-part episode. Carol Baskin owns the Big Cat Sanctuary in Tampa, and she only rescues cats. So kind of like what I said Joe Exotic used to do. She is completely against breeding and like cat petting and any kind of like close touching of them.
See, that sounds like me if I owned a be like, listen, they're in there, don't go in there.
But the whole thing with Carol Baskin, Richard, is that she doesn't have employees. She has volunteers. And the volunteers get basically like different levels or how much they do. They get different shirt colors.
Okay, so let me guess. Like there's a lot of people on the bottom, and then if they do really well, then they get a different color shirt, and then they move up a level until you get to the very top,
which pays nothing because you are a volunteer. And she has people, Richard, that come into her sanctuary and pay money.
So it's an organization shaped in a triangle-esque.
Yes. And her husband, Richard, run this Big Cat Sanctuary. Richard, what do you think happened to her first husband?
He got eaten.
There are rumors, Richard.
Oh my God.
Baskin murdered her husband.
Oh my Jesus.
And fed him to a tiger. Like I said, we'll get to Carol Baskin next episode.
Oh my God. So wait a minute. So now, see, like I was ready to root for her. I felt like she was going to be the good guy.
Oh my God, Richard. That's how this whole series is set up. Like the first episode you watch, it's like, oh my God, this guy's breeding cats. He's letting people pet him.
Like, fuck this dude.
Here comes like, the savior lady. She's if I
remember correctly, the Joe guy is the one. He has like the pictures I've seen on Facebook. He's the one that has like the weird blonde mullet, right? He's the one that looks like Billy Ray Cyrus's weird half brother.
Kind of, yeah, because he's got a Fu Manchu, tons of piercings.
Yeah. Looks like he got pulled straight out of a fucking like Leonard Skinner video.
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah,
kinda. This, like I said, the third part of this episode might be the Kevin Antle guy. So I won't dive into it too much, but he owns a big sanctuary as well. And
oh my God.
Same idea, Richard.
Let me guess. Like he people come to him and they're like, hey, I'm going to give you $20. Can you get rid of this body? And he's like, sure. And he fucking throws in a goddamn tiger cage. That's what happens.
Through this is the guy
and
that likes to
fucking gives the tigers meth, and then they all get the tigers are all fucking strung out.
No, he's not as druggy. He's very much more like cult-like. There's a lot of women between the age of like 18, 19 that show up. God
damn it. And, what do you do? Stop it.
We'll talk about him later.
All I'm hearing is just a series of irredeemable people.
Well, and that's what this show did so well is it's like you kind of see like Joe, you're like, fuck this guy. I'm rooting for, wait a minute, what the fuck? And then you're like, well, this guy seems, and what you end up, Richard, is you're rooting for the guy who essentially was like the person they used to build Scarface out of. Like the guy who they're like, oh
yeah, I was like, give me something here, because so far, if you want to wrap this up right now, my overall thought right now is the moral of the story is everyone is terrible.
They are.
People are terrible, and you should not associate with any of them.
I think we can touch a little bit more on Joe Exotic, and we'll lead into the Carol Baskin part. And next week, let's talk about Carol Baskin, because there's a ton there.
Jesus, fuck. I feel like I'm not going to want to hear any of it.
I'll tell you what,
though? Right now, I still don't want to watch this show.
Oh, you just wait. So Joe Exotic, right? So you're thinking, I don't know what your thoughts are on him, Richard. So
right now I'm thinking he's a like quasi slumlord, like he treats his he treats his employees like dirt and doesn't care.
Well, and that's the thing they talked about with the cult-like stuff, because people come in, they're kind of down on their luck.
What's the fucking point? I guess is what I'm saying. Like, what is if I'm fucking Jonah Ray Cyrus over here, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, what is the point of owning all these animals if you're not properly taking care of them, and you're subjecting people, and I'm guessing probably the animals, to subpar conditions? Then what is the point in having it? What is the point in doing the whole thing?
Well, I don't think it's good, but I think it's the fact that, like, you start making all this money off the cubs, and so he didn't at least just kill them. And so, you have I don't know what the number was, they didn't really say, but you have 15 cubs this year. Well, they grow up to be, cats that you have to take care of for 20 years.
How long does it take for like a cub to get to like how long does it take for like a cub to get to like a tiger stage?
It was interesting because they kind of showed it. I think like the first from birth to like 6 months is kind of the sweet spot where you would feel comfortable having it around people. From 6 months to a year, I think you could kind of have a little bit, but after that point, like, it's not safe to be around people.
Okay.
So after about 7 or 8 months, you basically are outside the money-making window for your cub.
Okay.
But Joe, from what sounds like, he just kind of put him in cages and people could go see him. Whereas the other guy, there's rumors that when they got out of that money window, he would just euthanize him.
Fuck.
The documentary mentioned that they raided him, I think, in December of 19, but didn't say if they found anything or not yet.
Oh.
But so, like I said, I think in Joe's head, from what I got from this documentary, I think when he was finding these people down on their luck, giving them a place to stay, and helping out, he was doing them a service. I don't think he thought he was taking advantage of them. He was. He was.
I'm gonna be clear on that. He, like, from everything you've described, yes, he was 100%.
I think it would be equated to, like, if I'm like, hey, Richard, can you come over and help me move? And you're like, well, I got to drive all the way to your hometown. It's gonna be 2 hours. They're like, oh, sweet, I'll see you on Tuesday. Like, that would be like, I may not think I'm taking advantage of you, and I am to an extent. I feel like maybe that's how Joe
I would a better metaphor would be you ask me to help you move, and I say sure, and then I come over, and then you're like, okay, well, I come in, and then you say, okay, well, there's the couch, there's the dresser, there's the bookcase. I'm gonna pack these dishes. Yeah, and I'm like, why the fuck am I moving all the heavy shit?
Yeah, or maybe a better metaphor would be you and your wife come up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you guys get that. I'm going to get this other stuff.
Yeah. You guys move the couch, the bookcase, and the entertainment center, and I'm going to put these DVDs in a box.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. It's like it's kind of taking advantage of, but like I may not associate that. Again, I would never do that, but that's the closest I could think of an analogy.
Yeah.
To where he's like, well, I got him a place to stay. I'm giving him food. And I'm pretty sure he was staying in the same conditions and eating the same food.
Ugh.
So it wasn't like he was, eating off the best end of the hog or anything.
Ugh.
So he's got all that going on, Richard. You see this guy, you're like, oh my God, this must be like some kind of weird, homophobic, racist, white trash thing out there, right?
That's exactly where my headspace is.
Episode 2, like that's what you're expecting. You're expecting to be this just like horrible, horrible person.
Yeah.
I think he is actually kind of racist.
Aha!
Because there was mentions of like Shaq, I guess, came to the park.
And
again, when this came out and they showed Shaq there, a lot of people were like, oh my God, shame on you, Shaq.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I mean, he didn't know. It was like 5 years ago before this was even a thing. He's like, oh my God, I love tigers. And so he went to this place and donated money to help the tigers.
Right.
So, and I guess when he showed up, Joe Exotic didn't know who he was. And I got this through some radio station or somebody talking about it. And I guess when Joe Exotic saw Shaq, and the basketball player Shaq, right?
Yes, I know who Shaq is.
I guess Joe Exotic was like, well, who's that big N-word?
Oh, God damn it.
And didn't say N-word, apparently. But Richard,
Then why wait a minute. If he didn't say it, then why are you saying it?
No, he didn't say N-word. He actually said the N-word.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
But Richard, I said like, oh my God, you think this white trash, racist, homophobic?
Yes.
Richard, this guy.
Well, I don't know about homophobic, but I mean, if I was to make an educated guess, I would probably say yeah.
Oh, Richard, episode 2, like you're kind of thinking all these weird things about him.
Yeah.
But they expose you, Richard, to his wedding.
Yeah. And guess what? They're all confirmed.
He was getting married to his second husband in a throuple.
So wait a minute. So he was marrying marrying another man, Richard, to have a throuple.
The way you're fumbling through this is exactly how Tiffany and I were.
So he's getting married to a guy and he's already married to a guy.
Yes.
Okay.
So he was married to this guy named John Finley, who, when you see the interviews with him, has meth mouth like you wouldn't believe. There's like one tooth.
See.
Like an inch, another tooth, and like 4 or 5 other inches, and another tooth.
Yeah.
Tattoos all over, right above his belly button, Richard, or right below his belly button.
It's a swastika.
No, it says privately owned by Joe Exotic.
Oh, Jesus.
Now, Richard,
Christ.
I would mention this to you, and you'd be like, okay, so like, it's guys falling in love, like, all right, like, maybe there's some happiness to this. Apparently, somehow, Joe Exotic had the magical skill of turning straight guys gay.
Yeah?
Yeah, so John Finley, he divorced him, I guess, before a lot of this started happening.
Okay, so
and
he got out before it got weird.
Yeah.
That's great.
And he was like 19, he said, when he showed up there, and he said, like, I was just... there was this time where Joe was in this like trailer with me and he gave me a BJ, and then like just like stuff happened. He's like, but I'm not gay. And the interviewer's like, well, I mean, are you like bisexual? He's like, no, I'm straight. I'm straight as an arrow. Like, but
that's not how that works.
Yeah, it was super confusing. There's another guy who showed
whatever.
Up. And John is kind of weird in this. Like, apparently, I feel like Joe would get these younger guys, like 19 to 20, and give them this cult lifestyle of like, oh my God, hey, guess what? You come to my park, you get all the drugs you want, weed, meth in case of John, get to play with tigers all day.
Oh my God. Like, can you see now, imagine you're employee number 12 and you're working at the park, and then all of a sudden this fucking methed out dude shows up and he's like all strung out. It's like, I want to pet the tigers.
So Travis,
you know what? If I'm making $150 a week, I'd be like, you know what? They're right over there. Yeah. Go the fuck ahead.
Is he getting eaten? Sweet. Don't have to feed that group today.
Yep.
So Travis, Richard, this
looks
is the
like
guy...
more canned great value peaches for me.
That chicken hadn't turned quite yet. So Travis Richard was the guy I mentioned in this wedding that he was getting married to. So he's already married to John, the meth mouth guy.
Right.
And Travis, they were like, he's this California hot, sexy dude. And he didn't look like anything I would think of as a hot, sexy California dude.
Okay.
But he came on as a volunteer / worker at the park. And I guess him and Joe were in the back of a truck. And I guess Joe would ask this joke all the time. And I think I've heard it before. But they're back there, and so Joe asked Travis, he's like, well, so are you gay? And Travis like, no, I'm not gay at all. He's like, all right, Joe says this. He's like, so when you watch porn, right? And Travis like, yeah, of course. He's like, all right, well, when you're watching porn, do you like the porn where the guy's got the small dick, or do you like the guy with the big dick? And Travis is like, oh, I like the guy with the big dick, of course. It's like, well, you're not quite that straight, are you?
Well,
apparently...
You caught me in a paradox.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like, well, I guess I'm gay now.
Is that how that works?
I don't know. Apparently in this case it did.
Shawn, what kind of porn do you like to watch?
I don't really pay much attention, to tell you the honest truth.
Is that true?
It is, actually. I don't care. I don't really pay attention to that.
What do you pay attention to?
Jesus.
That's blasphemous. Don't be talking to... You leave Jesus's dick out of this. I don't care what size it is.
You know what, Richard? Watching this documentary, I don't think Jesus is paying much attention to us.
Nope. So every day we stray further from God's light.
This Travis guy, so they get married. They have this 3-way wedding kind of thing.
Okay.
And Travis, apparently they kept talking about this, is that he was pretty depressed and having a lot of trouble because I guess like he kept saying like, he's like, well, I'm not really gay. And apparently they thought like, well, he's only staying here with Joe because A, he's addicted to drugs, and B, he doesn't have anywhere else to go.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that the reason he married Joe was so that way he could, like, you know, have a roof over his head.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
But it's weird too because like he was still involved with his mom, it sounds like. But we don't really get to hear firsthand from Travis. And the reason why, Richard, is on the GW Exotic Animal Park, it was not uncommon for Joe and apparently Travis as well to point firearms at people.
So they just like whip guns out and being like,
yeah,
you will eat those fucking great value peaches.
There's a director who was shooting a documentary to make a reality show on Joe Exotic called Tiger King. Which all the footage that they have, I think, is from Joe's personal stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, apparently he would just pull his gun out and point it at people. And during his election run, his campaign manager would talk about how Travis would just show up and would just point his gun at the campaign manager. And they show this footage, Richard, in the office. You know, Travis comes in and points it at the campaign manager guys he's working. And he was back underneath the security camera. So the security camera specifically focused on the campaign manager guy. And the campaign manager guy is talking to Travis. He's like, listen, I told you, don't do that. Don't point that gun at me. Like, I don't like that. You know I hate it. The most sane person out of this whole documentary is that campaign manager.
Right. I was going to say, so far, like, this is, like, right now, this guy sounds like the only person I can get behind.
Yeah. So Travis, pointing the gun at him, the campaign manager's like, you know, takes it off of him. He's like, dude, how many times have I told you these Rugers, when there's no clip in them, they won't fire? Puts the gun to his head, pulls the trigger.
Oh, my God.
Richard, guess what happens when there's a chambered round in a gun? Specifically a Ruger.
I'm guessing it fires.
It fires. You see, and they have it in the documentary, the campaign manager just like puts his hands over his head. And he even said, like, as they talked to him, he's like, I thought it was a joke at first because that's what this guy did. And so this kid, Travis, who was probably like 20-ish at this time, ends up killing himself here on, not on camera,
God,
but underneath the camera.
Oh, my God. I can't.
Well, Richard, it gets a little better because Joe Exotic.
Give me something.
At the
right
funeral.
Now, like, everything you're telling me is like, and hey, you know, and this guy, oh, this guy's terrible, and these are the terrible things he's done, and oh, and then he's with this person, and they do terrible things, and then they tried to kill this other person. Oh yeah, she does terrible things too. Shawn, find me some sort. Right now, this campaign manager is the only tether I have towards some semblance of goodness in this world.
Yeah, it's well, why don't we end on this, I guess, for this first episode on Tiger King. So
Give me something good. I need something positive.
Joe Exotic at the funeral for his lost love with his mother-in-law at the funeral. He's giving a speech.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how Travis had, you know, he was fun. He had a lot of life in him. And there'd be times where Joe would be sitting there at his computer and Travis would come and pull out his balls and smack Joe in the face with his balls, and how I guess he had like the greatest balls ever. And Joe Exotic, Richard, bust into one of his very own written country music songs at this wake. Richard, Joe Exotic is a country music singer.
Oh my God. Stop it. Just stop. I can't.
Oh, Richard. There's a little bit more I think we need to talk about Joe Exotic. But I think this is a good spot to stop, as this goes into the Joe Exotic versus Carol Baskin storyline.
Yes, let's do that because I can't First, anymore.
I guess Richard's closing thoughts. Maybe the best thing for this is what questions, what concerns do you have about the state of Oklahoma? Did I do a good job of explaining to you? Does this bring into focus?
I will say that like all the questions that I've had along the way, you've given me answers. Now, if you're asking me if any of this information you have given me makes me want to watch this, no.
Does this make you want us to do?
I didn't think that I would actually have a worse opinion than when I started.
Richard, we haven't even gotten to a lot of the nitty gritty.
I can't. Shawn, why would I want to watch a show about nothing but terrible people?
Do you want to go into episode 2? Like when we record next week, do you want to talk about
watching a document? It's like watching you know what this is? This is like watching a dramatic, a dramatic tale at like a Holocaust camp where like this is just like everything just sounds like this whole thing just sounds like so fucking depressing.
There's not many silver linings, but
I guess. Oh my God.
So are you like, I'm done? This is it. We're talking about something else next week, or do you want to hear the continued story?
No, well, I'll listen to the rest because you seem very excited about it.
I'm not excited. I feel like you haven't. It's just like when you watch the show, Richard. You're like, wait, he has his own country music? Wait, there's a murder for hire?
Of course. Like as soon as you said that, I'm like, well, yep, that tracks.
Yeah. Well, and I'll sprinkle, we didn't talk much about Jeff Lowe. There's basically a hostile takeover of his zoo by a guy who apparently doesn't have money, but somehow has money, who is kind of infamous for taking cubs to Vegas and using those to bang people in Vegas.
Okay.
Oh, Richard.
Right now, that guy sounds like the most normal to me. I mean, we'll see.
When you talk about how the murder for hire thing went, you might think otherwise.
God damn it.
All right. Well, Richard,
right, let's end this. End this now. I'm done.
Let me do a little bit of housekeeping. Visit our website, we're at languageofbros.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at bros@languageofbros.com. Like us on Facebook. There's a couple ways you can support us. We have all kinds of Richard petting zoos coming up. You just come in.
No, we don't. No, they're not there. No.
You can stroke Richard's amazing mane. I shaved my head so you can rub my head.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you don't want to do any physical contact right now, you get spread the bromance like they spread a lot of diseases in those trailers by liking or retweeting and sharing our show on Reddit or any other place. And also, you can get some LOB merchandise at the T Public Store.
I want nothing of us to be associated with any of this at all.
And if you want to take a little bit bigger step, of course, you can always join our Patreon account. It's patreon.com/languageofbromance. We pay for all this stuff out of pocket, and so we always want to kind of keep it free if we can, and do our best to keep it ad-free. So that's a spot you can go and drop us some money and join some of our groups, like our big fans, Wendy and Aaron.
Awesome.
All right, Richard. Was there anything else before I close her out?
Nope. We're done here.
All right. Well, that's all.
I feel like I need to go. I feel like I need to go take a shower. I need to go shower.
All right. Well, while Richard's cleaning off the animal shame,
like a crying game shower. You know what I mean? Like in the crying game, where like you're not trying to clean yourself. You're trying to like cleanse yourself.
Yeah. The best shot of one of the guys that used to work at the zoo that got fired when a lot of the trial stuff was going.
Yeah.
Is he's cooking at a restaurant and you see him just push down on this burger with his bare hand.
Mm-hmm. No, we're done. You're done.
All right.
No more.
That's all the bromance we have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And remember, don't be a why.
Be a why not.
Why shouldn't I buy a bunch of tigers? And
like I feel like now we should end the show with be a why not.
Yeah.
Unless you're this guy. Don't be this guy.
I mean, Richard,
at all.
If we put some money together, we could have a tiger.
No, nothing. The last hour, nothing you said has made me feel good about the world.
You just wait about part 2 and part 3.
God damn it.